good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us today for a very interesting lunchtime webinar. I hope you can all hear me well. My name is Amira Tamam, and I'm a team lead mechanical design engineer at CRP. CRP is a global leader in the manufacturing and distribution of fluoropolymers, mostly lined equipment for the chemical, pharmaceutical, and associated processing industries. So I know a bit about the pharmaceutical industry, which what brings me here today. I'm very delighted to be your host today. So we're going to ask a very important question and discuss it with our audience. And we also have a group of excellent professionals who have joined us on a panel to share their experiences as well. And that question is going to be, what does it actually mean to be an engineer in the pharma industry? Because there seems to be a stereotype about what that actually involves, mostly people in labs making medicines. But the pharmaceutical industry actually has so much more to provide, and specifically for engineers, there are numbers of opportunities in this industry. To introduce our excellent panel for today, we have Karen Stevenson, who is a compliance officer at GSK. She has over 25 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry. There's also Claire Edwards, who's going to explain a bit about the pharmaceutical industry, or pharmaceuticals in general, just after I've finished introducing them. She's an engineering lead for the Europe supply chain and at Haleon. In addition to that, she has a role as a chair of the IMechE's pharmaceutical committee. In addition, we've got Aaron Blair, who's business process manager at GSK. He's got over 7 years of experience in pharmaceuticals. As well, Richard Coe, who is the senior GMDP quality consultant and a member of the IMechE Pharmaceutical Technical Advisory Committee. He has over 40 years of experience, last 24 in pharma. And last but not least, Hosam Aleem. He's a lecturer in the Department of Chemical Engineering at the University of Manchester with over 30 years of experience in the industry. I'm going to give it over to everyone else. So I would like you to answer a question with us, kind of, so we can have a nice interactive session, which brings me to our question. What do you think engineers do in the pharmaceutical industry? You can leave your answers in the question box and we can take it from there.
So Amira, are we starting to get some ideas in the questions box?
No questions yet. Oh, there we go. We've got first question for the day. Sorry, answer. Yeah, so some of them are saying that some of the things that engineers do is process capability, manage processes, and automation. We've got some questions as well that we can answer later, but mostly we wanted to get an idea of what everyone actually thinks that engineers do in the pharmaceutical industry. But we can discuss a bit more of that with Claire.
Excellent. Yes, so it's great. So we've got some people warming up and starting to share what they think. Over the course of these next couple of slides, we're just going to talk through maybe a few things that we get.
Sorry, Olivia. Apparently, no one can see the slides. Some people are saying that they can't see a PowerPoint.
Let me check I'm doing it correctly. Okay.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. Is that one coming through now, please?
Yes, we can see it.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, what do you think engineers do in the pharmaceutical industry? So Amira was mentioning lots of really cool answers and ideas in the questions box. So let's sort of explore a few of those. So firstly, there's kind of things it was mentioned, but we talked about optimizing our processes. We've got lots and lots of medical products we need to be making for our patients, and making sure we make them efficiently and to the best of our ability is a very important part of that. Automation was mentioned. Yes, lots of automated systems, particularly where we want to keep people away from products, and we might need to rely on robotics and make sure there's a huge amount of work done in that area. Very importantly for pharmaceuticals is not only the project management aspect that can be seen as quite general, but there are particular expectations in validation about making sure we've got good quality assurance and making sure we manage our quality risks incredibly effectively. Because at the end of the day, a patient will pick up a white pill and be reliant that we've made it to the right quality and sort of to the best of our ability for our patients. It doesn't just end at manufacturing. There's a huge amount of work done in research and development, and sort of engineers may be involved in setting up those laboratories and making sure we've got good laboratory operation. We build major facilities. So an API plant will be pretty huge. Everything straight the way through from the chemical, active pharmaceutical ingredients we create right the way through to how we package our products to make sure they transfer safely. We need to make sure we have the plants, kits and equipment that we need for those tasks. We also build a lot of expertise and knowledge in this particular field of engineering, and sort of therefore your role in pharmaceuticals may be that you're a subject matter expert. You provide consultative advice to make sure the products are made correctly. We naturally love a good bit of problem solving, as every engineer does. We enjoy that challenge of making sure we can apply 6-step, 7-step problem solving, FMEAs, all of those lovely, fantastic tools that make sure we have really strong, reliable processes to manufacture our products. We mentioned building facilities. Also, we need to create certain environments for making pharmaceuticals, and these might be things like clean rooms, where we need to make sure dust, particles, etc. will not get into the product. And increasingly so, sustainability is at the top of the agenda, and there's huge amounts of work to develop and apply renewable energy techniques. And I mentioned before, designing and building new kit and equipment. So those were just a few comments of what we've got in the pharmaceutical industry. Maybe before Amira takes us back to the questions, panel, is there anything I've missed that we need to flag and highlight, please?
I mean, what you've said, Claire, was excellent. I've also kind of been trying to compare what everyone has been putting in the group on the question box, and a lot of them have mentioned some of the things that you mentioned, like specify equipment, design the processes for manufacturing. They are executing the projects related to whatever discipline they're in. They can establish process equipment. So there's a lot of people that are mentioning equipment, processes for the equipment, and design of the equipment. We have some questions from everyone as well that we can take on later. But please feel free to keep adding any questions in the question box, and we'll get to them in time.
Hi, Amira, this is Richard. Just wondered if I could sort of add to what Claire was saying.
Thank you.
On the just with respect to the different sort of looking at all the different all the activities that Claire mentioned, you know, there may be there's always sort of a tendency to perhaps try to categorize engineers into certain compartments. I think what struck me on when I was asked to talk on this, I actually looked at the IMechE website, which on a particular page it actually gives 18 different categories of engineer. I looked through those and I realized over my 20 odd years in pharmaceuticals that I'd actually worked in probably 14 of those, or I could claim some experience in 14 of them. I mean, I wouldn't claim to be subject matter expert, but the point is that I think a pharmaceutical engineer is actually a many faceted thing, in the sense that you touch on lots of different processes. So I think that's always something to bear in mind, and we might later in the discussion we might want to talk about the sort of opportunities that offers to people who might be thinking about joining the industry.
Oh, sorry, I was. Thank you very much, Richard, for that. Should we have a little chat with the panel and then go to questions? So I thought I'd start with this question, and this is open to everyone. And do you think there are unique challenges in pharmaceuticals that engineers need to solve that may not be seen in other industries?
Hi, so it's Karen here. So maybe if you can hear me, okay, I'll
yes,
kick us
great.
off
Thank you,
with
Karen.
some thoughts on this one. So where I'd like to go with in response to this particular question is around the industry being as regulated as it is now. Pharmaceuticals isn't alone in this, and again, in my experience, I've often brought on board engineers who previously worked in, for example, nuclear power. So we're not the only industry that's very, very tightly regulated, but it is very tightly regulated. And if you come from an area that is, so certainly around the GXP area now, obviously there are general standards of engineering that need to be applied around professional engineering. And as you become chartered, obviously, you become increasingly familiar with those. Having said that, I guess it's a whole new level of scrutiny. So I suppose the main thing is on levels of scrutiny and kind of where in the industry you work. So much of my work experience has been in contract manufacturing. And as contract manufacturers, we tend to get a lot of scrutiny because we are working, if you like, for the big pharma like GSK, which is where I am now. But also all the markets that the products you're making go into, the regulators from those markets, and most manufacturers will be operating internationally, will at some point or other want to come visit. And sure enough, your work is going to be under scrutiny. So I guess, that is my input on this. No, it's not unique to pharmaceuticals, but it's a very clear area where pharmaceuticals do stand out from some other areas.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to add to this question? Should we go with Aaron next?
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to add to that. I think building on what Karen said, I think the big thing we need to ask ourselves is what is different, what sets pharmaceuticals apart. And I think it's the products, what we make, the devices, the medicines. What are they for? Why would one of our consumers or patients be interacting with us in the first place? And I think it's normally because they have something wrong. They need a medicine, they need something to improve their quality of life or try and cure something they have. And if you think any time in your life you've had to do that, or any time you've given a product to a loved one in your family, you don't stop and ask, will this work? You don't stop and think, has it been manufactured to the right standards? Is it pure? Is it going to do what I expect it to do? And I think that's what sets us apart, is the trust in the products. Obviously, any devices if you get into a car or an airplane, you expect it to perform. I think the thing that sets pharmaceuticals apart is these products go inside your body. You're going past the line of defense for a person, the natural barriers, and we're putting stuff inside people that is to make a positive impact on them. And I think that's the big difference, how we work, whether it's cleanliness, whether it's material science of making sure equipment we use doesn't interact or change the product. There are things to think about on a more serious level that interacts with the trust with our end users, our patients. And I think that is the big difference, is that's in your mind, and that's what has to be at the forefront of your decisions every day as an engineer in this industry.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I'd be interested to see what someone from an academic background would think about this. Like Hosam, would you care to add anything to this as well? So I don't think we can hear you. That's all right. Should we go to the next question, maybe? Yeah, so this is a very important question because, I mean, we're trying to promote the pharmaceutical industry as much as possible because, I mean, it's so exciting. Personally, I have changed industries from automation and robotics. I'm a mechatronics engineer degree holder, so I changed it drastically to pharmaceuticals and chemicals, and I never looked back since. It's a very exciting industry. So I would love to hear from each one of the members of the panel to what motivates them personally to work in pharmaceuticals. I mean, we have people like Richard, who's been in the industry for over 24 years, and as well as Sam, who's been in the industry for over 30 years. So, Richard, would you care to start maybe on this answering this question?
Yes, thank you, Amira. Yeah, it's. I think the primary motivation for me is the things that Aaron was mentioning, which is the desire to make things better for people, which is sort of it's a fundamental tenet of the IMechE engineering industry in any case. But I just think back to the early stage of my career when I was working on a new pharmacy manufacturing unit within the Royal Victoria Hospital in Newcastle. So that was particularly it was quite moving, really, because actually on that site you're actually intermingling with the patients. So you're seeing people there who are very sick, and then you realize that what you're doing is going to go an awfully long way to making them better in due course. And that for me was a huge motivation to, if you like, continue in the industry. I mean, working back from that, in my previous life, I used to be a farmer, spelt with an F. So you might ask, well, how on earth did I transition to farmer with a PH? Well, it was basically because the industry I was in was going into decline in the 1980s, and I was eventually basically unable to provide for my family. I was in negative equity, and actually, my family was socially disadvantaged, I felt. So it really just woke up one day and thought, well, I've got to change all this. And I thought, well, what do I like doing? I thought, well, I'd always been an engineer at heart. So I actually went back to university, retrained as a mechanical engineer. So that's my job title. And almost by chance, I ended up working for a company that actually built pharmaceutical production units. So that's how I actually ended up working for a construction engineering company, but working on pharma sites. And that's where I suddenly saw the light of day, and I thought there's lots of things there that interest me. So that's so, you know, my primary motivation is, you know, helping patients, making the world a better place. I've got significant motivations in my personal life because I'm now infinitely better off, more better off than I was over 20 years ago when I left farming. So I think those are my primary motivations.
And that's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's great to see how much, you know, a profession can really change your life, and to know that you contribute to your community on a daily basis when you're also contributing to your personal life. But we also have Karen, who you've had over 25 years of experience in this industry. What has motivated you to start in this industry and stay for that long? Sorry, Karen, can you hear us?
I think Amira, I think Karen's having some problems getting off mute, but I'm happy to answer this one quickly.
Thank you,
and
Aaron.
then maybe if Karen can add on what I've said afterwards. I think the motivation I'm probably the least experienced person on the panel today, and so I've probably made the decision to join this industry most recently. And I think, sort of echoing Richard's comments, for me it came from a personal reason. Having family members who relied a lot on medication and stuff when you're younger, and as you get older, you start to realize you're very fortunate for time with people who are ill, and you learn that the medicine that was, you know, medicine's what give you that time with them. And I think I made a decision quite early, before university probably, that I wanted to work in an industry that contributed to health in some way, and in improving health in some format. I didn't have the skills or the abilities to work maybe in a medical, like as a doctor, but I knew what I was good at, and I knew, more importantly, what I was interested in. And I think those are the things that you have to pursue. My skills were in this area, and that's why I chose to pursue engineering, with the aim of using that to get into the health industry in some way. And as we're talking about today, it's a manufacturing industry, it's a design industry for medical devices. So there's lots of opportunity to apply your skills as an engineer in an industry that has at the heart of it a purpose of improving people's lives. And I think that's something that motivated me to apply, and it's kept me coming back since then. I think one of the sort of site directors that I first worked under when I just joined the industry, some work we had done had helped ease a supply chain issue, and they had said, you know, addressing the team that worked on it, that, you know, thanks to our effort, an extra 40,000 people would have access to medicine that day, because the product was destined for a country where we were the sole suppliers. And I think comments like that, they motivate you when you're in the industry, and it helps you feel good, and you realize that the work you're doing is, you know, having a positive impact for people. And I think that's what keeps most of us here.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Aaron. How did you actually start your journey? So you studied engineering at university, and what was your goal after that?
So yeah, I think I studied mechanical engineering at Queen's University in Belfast, and they had a really strong link with industry, and they really encouraged us to pursue industrial placement years. And you're having that motivation personally to join a health industry. I was looking specifically at manufacturing companies for medical devices and pharmaceutical products. And yeah, I completed that year in industry with GSK, and then enjoyed it enough to come back on their graduate training program, and have moved around some, you know, fantastic places in the UK, up in Scotland and England. And yeah, you realize as a young engineer, I think, just trying to figure out what you like. There's so much in this industry to offer. There's the bulk chemical processing at primary manufacturing sites. You have the tablets and injectables at, you know, the secondary, and you've obviously final packing, and then all the supply chain that comes with that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that I got exposed to very quickly, and that's what what kept me interested, and made it, hopefully make a full career out of it. I don't intend to leave, because I think that personal motivation is still there to contribute to something that's helping people.
Well, thank you so much. That sounds amazing. How about you, Claire? You're also the chair of the IMechE Pharmaceutical Committee. I mean, how did your journey motivate you through that path?
Absolutely, thank you. I can definitely echo the path that motivates me about care for people and sort of what this industry does to transform lives. That's such something that's so close to my heart, and that's a natural motivation. In terms of getting into the area of what made me choose pharmaceutical industries, interestingly, I started off in the steel industry, and that was a fantastic experience, and I learned so much in that kind of area, but I really wanted to stretch other areas of my technical excellence, really, as an engineer. So I saw an opportunity in the pharmaceutical industry, and it was what Aaron just described. It was actually in the kind of bulk pharmaceutical drug area of making huge big batches of important active pharmaceutical ingredients, and that's really where I got into it. I've done a whole range of different jobs in the pharmaceutical industry, from on-hand, on-plant operations, right the way to designing new supply chains, planning, manufacture, to strategy, to environment, health and safety. So it's certainly an industry where I've not failed to have opportunities, and I'm always continuing to grow. And that's probably helps answer Amira. And then the part about being in IMechE is me as a professional engineer, and the opportunity that we have to be on the pharmaceutical committee in IMechE is brilliant, because I get to engage with fellow engineers in this industry, in this business, in this area of engineering, where we can bounce ideas off each other and get inspiration.
Thank you so much for that, Claire. Well, maybe another question would be to how would you motivate other people to be inspired by the pharmaceutical industry and actually pursue it, or how would you get people to get interested in it?
So me personally, I think it always connects to those personal stories and experiences. And I loved what Aaron shared, because I'm very much in a similar place. One of the products that I worked on, actually my uncle took when he had a serious form of cancer. And that was about 15, 16 years ago. And I won't tell the name of the product for personal identifiable information or anything like that. But he's still with us. And that part for me is my small part in that pharmaceutical industry, my small part in planning that new product being introduced and where it should be made and the technology behind it, meant that it was available for someone I cared about dearly, who's now, living longer. And for me, that's a fabulous part of the personal connection, just coupled with, as we've been talking earlier, there's just so many great opportunities to learn, to grow. And I think the other bit for me is, in the pharmaceutical company, these companies are spending about a quarter of their revenues in research and development, and then translating that knowledge into products that help people. I mean, that's a great to be in an industry where there's that level of investment, and what it's being invested in really makes a difference to people's everyday lives. That, for me, would be how I'd love to share and motivate others to really work in this industry, Amira.
Thank you, Claire. So far, what everyone on the panel has really said is you all have in common that one thing, that you love doing what you do because you know that you're contributing to the community, and you're actually improving people's lives and helping people. I mean, even if you didn't have a backstory to, something personal, that is something that I think anyone would be inspired by and want to be a part of. Since unfortunately we've lost Karen and Hosam due to technical difficulties.
No, I'm back.
Oh, are you? Hello.
Hello.
I'm back as well.
Good to know. Good to know. Well, I'd like to ask you the same question as well. What motivates you to work in pharmaceuticals?
Shall I take that first, Hosam, and then over to
Yes,
you?
please do. Yes. Yes.
So I think very briefly, I think for me, there's been lots of opportunities. I don't know if those opportunities would have appeared in other industries, but they did for me. I think the other thing would be just the sheer variety and breadth of work. And if you are interested and prepared to apply yourself, then you know the doors are usually open. It certainly has been my experience. And of course the ability to know, or the knowledge that you know what you are doing has real meaning for a lot of people. And I think I'm hearing that as a general theme through from people who've already spoken. You know, it makes the work very extremely meaningful. And I guess the last thing I'd like to say, I did pick up on one of the audience questions, stroke comments. Again, I would say, you know, there aren't really any barriers. The pharma industry is already always crying out for good quality engineers. It's all about, with any job, you know, showing whoever, the recruiting manager, what it is that you've got that's going to meet the need that they have. And I can pretty much guarantee you there's going to be plenty of need out there. So that's it from me.
Thank you very much. Hosam, would you like to answer the same question as well?
Yeah, happy to. Well, maybe my motivation is a bit different, and my motivation was technical, really, because the pharmaceutical industry is very technically different from other industries that I worked in. I started my career in the oil and gas industry, which was very, very different. Everything was dirty over there, and the value was actually in the ironmongery rather than the intellectual property, as opposed to the pharmaceutical industry, where the actual value is in the intellectual property, in the IPR. But also when I started, I sort of dived in the deep end. I was working on the clean rooms. It was a very interesting challenge for me from a technical standpoint, and I needed to learn a lot about biology and so on. So in addition to what everyone said about the impact, which of course is a very good reason, but there was also the technical sort of attraction to it to me.
Thank you, Hosam. I think we have quite a few questions to get through as well from the audiences. So we'll go to our last question that we are giving to the panel members, and then we can go to the audience questions and have a bit of a more of an interactive webinar. So this is a very important question. As you can imagine, every industry will have some challenges involved with their work. So Claire, would you like to start? What do you think are the current pharmaceutical challenges?
So current pharmaceutical challenges for me are because the business I'm in has recently spun off to be standalone, fast-moving consumer goods. And so it was a part of GSK that broke away last year. So that it's been a new experience of kind of stepping away, if you like, from the shadow of GSK, which is a company I really, spent time with since 2004 and really kind of aligned to all its principles. And then the kind of exciting journey of spinning off where, the kind of over-the-counter products were going to be, stand on your own 2 feet and get up to it. So there's certainly that part about the changing business world for me in pharmaceuticals. And that's probably the biggest adjustment and the biggest challenge for me at the moment. And it's not the only company that's going to do that. J&J will be spinning off their consumer healthcare arm pretty shortly. So it's kind of quite exciting to be in an industry where great change like this is happening. And it's kind of it's not only the products, the patient, the consumers, the people. It's also the kind of business challenge that I probably wouldn't have expected. I would see so much of probably when I first joined GSK. So that's probably one reflection for me.
Thank you, Claire. How about you, Richard? What are some of the challenges that you have been involved with your work in this industry?
Yes, thank you, Amira. I think currently I actually have the job title of responsible person, which is primarily related to the distribution side of pharmaceuticals. So the challenge that relates to that would be the one where we have to meet extremely stringent regulatory guidelines and rules and regulations. You know, they're the challenge within those is that we are governed by the regulator, the MHRA, in the UK, and other similar regulators in Europe and America, and pretty much wherever you go in the Western world. The challenge for the engineers is how we meet those regulations, because we're all licensed. We're inspected by the regulator against the regulations, and the challenge for me as an engineer is to provide evidence that or to provide solutions to those challenges, to those regulations, that will actually satisfy the regulator. And for me personally, as an RP, this is similar to a QP, a qualified person. I actually have a legal duty of care in relation to the license holders that I work for. So, you know, that's quite a significant. Well, I viewed it as an opportunity for professional development, but you know that's quite significant, and it's an ongoing and ever-changing challenge, because regulations only get more stringent. New products come online. There's been a lot of changes recently because of the introduction of the speedy introduction of COVID vaccines, for example. So I think that's for me, that's the challenge. And in effect, as an engineer, we have the skills to turn a challenge, or a threat, if you like, into opportunity through exercising our engineering competencies. So I think that's probably the main thing for me.
Thank you, Richard. I would like to hear from Karen. I mean, you and Aaron both have experience with JSK, so maybe one of you can give us a bit more about what challenges you find within your line of work.
So yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I work in compliance, and I guess one of the biggest things that's probably a challenge is the ever-evolving regulatory framework. And the other thing I think that's we may not have touched on much so far is not just from the quality perspective, but from the health and safety perspective. So certainly, and I know this is true in other industries as well, is that engineers tend to get very involved in health and safety, particularly around manufacturing, because what we want to do is design out the risks rather than having to put in place things that rely on kind of people doing the right sorts of things. So we do have, certainly for us, the team I'm a part of, have a very close relationship with our EHS colleagues. So without giving too many specifics, I think, so if you take a regulatory challenge that has had a big engineering impact is serialization, where you're looking at sort of proof of supply chain throughout the whole life of the product, from where it's manufactured on the production line to where someone opens a pack of tablets or whatever medicine they're taking in their own home. And of course, every country has a slightly different variation on that theme. So yes, that can be, you know, an enormous challenge. I would say the upside of that is, you know, there's never a boring moment. You know, I would say to anybody who's here today, if you're finding your current role with your current employer maybe a little bit tedious or boring, yet another design of pipe, you know, you might want to have a look at pharmaceuticals, because you can find a huge amount of variety in there. So yeah, without sort of rambling on for the rest of the day, those are the ones that immediately come to my mind.
Thank you very much. I mean, we've all kind of heard about supply chain being a big issue at the moment, especially in the UK. So Claire, as someone that has a lot of experience in that, would you say that's one of the challenges that you find extremely involved within your line of work?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, certainly a general one for many kind of supply chains, but it's certainly moved on from, and I think the kind of events in the world, in Ukraine and wars and what we've experienced with COVID, we went through a long time where we were constantly looking to have supply chains that could be agile and move quickly and do what they need to make sure our patients could get their products. Now it's very much a case of disruption is the norm, it's what you're going to get. So it's kind of, how do you put in place the right kind of contingencies, the right stock planning, have the right relationships to make sure that patients will always get their essential medicines. So that would be my reflection on that one.
Thank you, Claire. Well, I was thinking now, since we've only got 50 minutes left, and what we can do is go to the audience questions. We have quite a few ones. So I'm going to start with a question from Rana De Ray. Thank you so much for your question. He's asking, how is the pharmaceutical industry connected to the process industry? Would any of the panel members like to answer this?
Hi, Amira. I can probably chip in there.
Thank you, Richard.
I think there's I was just thinking back to a slide I've got in one of my training presentations. A chap called Denning once said, everything we do is a process. And that kind of set me thinking. And I think that's very applicable here, because pretty much everything that goes on in the pharmaceutical industry can be defined as a process. I mean, as a process engineer, you know, again, it's the risk of compartmentalizing that title, process engineer. You know, when you think, well, can a process engineer work in the pharmaceutical industry? Well, absolutely they can, because pretty much every drug manufacturing process is a process, so to speak. So I'd always say to in answer to that question, and we've mentioned this, other speakers have mentioned this, that actually being an engineer is an assembly of an awful lot of different competencies. So you could think of a process engineer as being involved in, you know, perhaps a fluid-based process in the pharmaceutical industry, or pretty much every biologic product will be manufactured in a fluid-based process. So, you know, there are instant crossovers there. So So I think probably, you know, it's best if people think about their if they're being trained as an engineer or thinking of going into it, think about developing personal competencies and then placing those in the context of the pharmaceutical industry.
Thank you for that, Richard. We can go to the next question. So this is a question from John Govart. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And he's asking, from what I see in the news, the pharma industry seems to be heavily automatized. Are engineers involved in the design of the devices, and how far can they interact with the experts?
Hi, Amira. Yeah, I'm happy to try my best to answer this one.
Thank you, Aaron.
I think we, yes, you're right. The pharmaceutical industry, I think, and this will sort of touch on the previous question we had about current challenges. The industry is trying to embrace current technology and current ways of working from all industries. You know, use of data, big data analytics, automized systems, digital tools. Engineering or pharmaceutical, sorry, are at the forefront of that, and they're really trying to where previously the pharmaceutical industry was quite slow to respond to changes in technology. This time, when it comes to Industry 4, as it's being known, pharmaceuticals are really trying to keep at the forefront of that and embrace these changes as quickly as possible, which inevitably it's difficult in a very regulated environment, as we've touched on, but there is a willingness to do it from all parties, because ultimately it it results in better products and more reliable supply chains and more reliable manufacturing factories. In terms of engaging with design, I think the unfortunate answer is it depends. It depends how big a customer you are, probably, of the team, the factory, or of the company that's developing the automated system, and whether or not you have a very specific use case that needs a bespoke solution. I know some pharma companies design or do some design in-house, but a lot of times it's engaging with specialist companies that design automated solutions for many industries. And we engage and work with them as part of that process to, if they don't have something off the shelf that's suitable for pharmaceuticals, we often will engage with them and try and help them get something that works for both of us and develop something more appropriate. But I think on that sort of general theme of current technology, I think there is a huge opportunity for people who have the skills or have the interest to embrace new technologies, new ways of working. I think a massive part of my role now is engaging with Industry 4 and using different deployed cloud solutions. And I'm talking in terms of things like for engineering reliability of assets, for condition-based maintenance. We're wanting to get away from being reactive. We want to get into prescriptive and predictive analytics and start to understand our assets better than we ever have. Can we tell when they're going to fail? Can we simulate them running with digital twins? And can we know different failure methods in advance that will reduce the impact to our operations and consequently to our supply chains and ability to supply medicines? So yeah, it's a great question. It probably needs a webinar on its own. I could talk about digital and data things all day, but yes, there's lots of scope in this industry, and I think it will only get bigger.
Thank you, Aaron. That was very, very helpful. The next question is asking from Ashley Kingston, what is the interaction between engineers and areas such as compliance and working with QPs? Anyone on the panel that has any experience with compliance?
Hi, Amira. I can probably chip in there because that's very much, compliance is very much my area.
Excellent, thank you.
As a responsible person, I have a duty of care to make sure that the companies that I, or the licenses that I work for, I have a duty of care to make sure that they are producing, or at least they're supplying, safe medicines. So again, as I was explaining before, we're working to regulations, and where my engineering competencies come in is devising and demonstrating that, devising processes that demonstrate that the specific, in my case, the distribution and supply chain solutions that are appropriate for the companies that I work for, I have to be able to demonstrate to the inspectorate that they are compliant, and that involves a lot of interaction with the various disciplines within the company. But primarily, it always comes back to primarily scientific basic principles, which are the things that all engineering training is founded on. So there is a direct connection, and I think the benefit I get for it, or the rewards I get from it, are being able to come up with solutions that meet the compliance aspects, as well as satisfying the business objectives of the clients. And just finally on this one, something that's coming up on us very much now is that we also have to take into account sustainability and carbon reduction considerations. So that's bringing in yet another facet to all of this. So, but that itself is probably worthy of at least another webinar. So I'll probably stop waffling at that point.
Thank you, Richard. That was very helpful. I think we have time for a couple more questions. Maybe Claire, you can take this one. Ashley Kingston is asking, are there any specific qualifications other than engineering required to work in the pharma industry?
Oh my gosh, good question. I think the pharmaceutical industry is so wide and broad that there are plenty of opportunities for scientists and engineers and many other different people's backgrounds to kind of get involved. I'm certainly coming into the pharmaceutical industry as an engineer, you'd be expected to have done, in most cases, you know, definitely, usually your MEng now, if that's the way you're kind of looking at it, people are looking for that strength of application and looking for people that have got a desire and a keenness to continue to grow and learn. But it's more than just your technical skills. So, I mean, qualifications can be things on pieces of paper and your certificates, and there's lots of kind of courses, and there are lots of things you can go on and things you can do with IMechE to sort of really boost your background and your knowledge and your information, you know, the information you retain and can apply. But it's more, I see three particular areas, actually, more than qualifications, that are needed for the pharmaceutical industry. I think, first of all, you have to be technically competent. So that bit about, you know, having that strong educational base, you know, and it doesn't have to be through a university degree path. There are many other routes which you may have done through BTEC, that you may have done through apprenticeships. There are loads and loads of opportunities as an engineer to get engaged in this industry. But the things that really matter is your attitude, because, you know, you can train for skill, but, you know, you need someone who comes with the right attitude and is willing to apply themselves. And then that will stretch into how you work in teams, how you lead particular activities. And as well as that, really having an idea and some business acumen, because at the end of the day, it's knowing about what do patients want and being kind of familiar with your industry. So, Amira, I'm not sort of saying you must kind of do, you know, degree course X because that's the only route in. That's not the case. There are many, many routes in, but it really is about what is your, you know, your learning agility, the way in which you apply what you learn, your curious mind, and how, most importantly, you engage with others and because it's no good having the best idea in the world if you can't communicate it and if you can't work with others to see that kind of vision through to execution.
Amira, can I just jump in here, please?
Of course, thank you.
Yeah, because I'm an academic now. I've started my career in the industry, and I lost my way and became an academic. So I'm involved in teaching and so on. And in fact, the slide that I have in front of me says the challenges. And one of the challenges that I'm facing in my line of work is essentially answering this question: how do we best prepare engineers to work in the pharmaceutical industry? Because as I've been mentioned several times now, the pharmaceutical engineering interacts with many other sort of disciplines: chemistry, pharmacy, automation, supply chain, and so on and so forth. And sustainability is a big thing now. So this is one of the challenges. And as Claire was just saying, there's no one set route that you have to take, but it is about the skills and the attitude, as she was saying. But also, I think eventually you will need to have some technical background. I'm currently teaching in chemical engineering, and there's a lot of sort of, the first question about the process versus pharma and so on. So you learn a lot about the traditional process engineering. But one of the problems that we're currently having is that we don't give enough about maybe batch processing. I know the pharma industry is moving towards continuous processing, but still a lot of it, especially in the dosage forms, is still batch based. And then also the sustainability. We tend to teach it in chemical engineering, perhaps from a more environmental impact side of thing. Because we do a lot of so-called material balance and energy balance and so on. So yes, it is an interesting one. Sorry, I think we're running out of time, so I'm going to shut up here. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're okay. Thank you very much. Well, I completely agree. I mean, I started as a mechatronics engineer, and then I went into mechanical design after a few years' experience in mechatronics, and then I ended up kind of supporting the pharma industry through mechanical design. So yeah, you can have a lot of different qualifications and different backgrounds and end up in pharma. It depends. I think what's very important is that you're actually passionate about it and that you want to pursue that journey. But this brings us to the end of our webinar for today. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for all the members of the panel. Sorry if there were some technical difficulties at the beginning. It happens. So if you would like a CPD certificate, you can feel free to email murat.islam@member.imeche.org, as in the email that is in the slide in front of you. And please give us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you on how we can improve or what subjects you'd like to hear for other events as well. The feedback form is also on the slide. We can add it as well in the, I think we can add it in the chat. So yeah, thanks everyone again, and I hope you enjoyed your time today.